The Milesians asked what soul is made of. They answered with substance, water, air, the intelligent breath holding the cosmos together. And they were right about one thing. Whatever soul is, it is everywhere. The world is alive. The animating principle runs through everything. If the soul is air, what makes the air itself organized? If the animating principle is distributed through matter, what distinguishes a living thing from a stone? The question shifts, and with it, the inquiry moves up. Heraclitus of Ephesus and Anaxagoras of Clazomenae both ask what the soul does. What is the principle that organizes, that directs, that holds the pattern of a thing across time, while the thing itself changes? Their answers are structurally different from each other, but they are both pointing at the same boundary, the line between the corporeal level and something above it, something that governs rather than constitutes. This is where the inquiry gets genuinely difficult and genuinely interesting. Heraclitus wrote in fragments. He apparently did this deliberately. He was encoding something about the nature of reality into the form of what he wrote. Reality does not sit still long enough to be described in clean propositions. It has to be caught in motion. His central claim is that everything flows. Nothing stays. The river you step into is never the same river twice, and neither are you. The world is a process. Fire is his arche. Fire demonstrates what reality is, a constant exchange, a burning that consumes and transforms without stopping. Underneath the flux, something holds. Heraclitus calls it the logos. The logos is the rational principle that governs the exchange. It is the measure by which fire transforms into water, and water into earth, and earth back again. The cosmos is an ordered flux. The logos is the order within the ordering. The soul connection is direct. Heraclitus writes that the soul has a logos that increases itself. He writes that a dry soul is wisest and best. He writes that it is death for souls to become water, and death for water to become earth. These statements require some unpacking. The dry soul is the soul that has not collapsed into the corporeal level. Water is the lower, denser, more reactive state. Earth is lower still. The soul that stays dry, that maintains its fiery logos participating nature, is the soul that can think, perceive, and act with intelligence. The wet soul is the drunk soul, the soul that has lost its capacity to participate in the logos because it has sunk into its material conditions. This is Heraclitus' structural claim about consciousness. The soul has a natural orientation upward towards the logos, toward the organizing principle that governs the cosmos. When it loses that orientation and becomes absorbed in its material conditions, it loses its defining capacity. Heraclitus also writes that thinking is shared by all, that the logos are common to all, but most people live as though they have their own private understanding. The logos is universal. The soul that participates in it is participating in something that transcends individual experience. The soul that remains locked in private perception is operating below its capacity. There is a deep structural insight here about the relationship between the individual soul and the universal principle. The logos is the pattern that governs the whole. The soul's highest function is to align with an understanding that was already operating before any individual soul arrived. What Heraclitus cannot resolve, and this is where the architecture stops, is the relationship between the logos and the soul that perceives it. Are they the same thing at different scales? Is the soul a local instance of the logos? Or is there a genuine distinction between the principle and the being that participates in it? He feels the question. He cannot answer it. His fragments circle it from multiple angles without landing. Where Heraclitus keeps soul and logos in dynamic tension, always in flux, always exchanging, Anaxagoras makes a move that is exact in detail. He separates the organizing principle from everything else it organizes, completely. His cosmology begins with a mixture. In the beginning, all things were together. every substance, every quality, every element, mixed into an undifferentiated whole. Nothing was distinguishable from anything else, and then nous began to rotate. Nous is, in Anaxagoras' term, it translates roughly as mind or intelligence. But his definition of nous is specific and radical. Nous is the finest of all things and the purest. It has knowledge of all things and the greatest power, and, the critical point, nous stands alone. This is a structural revolution. Every other thinker before Anaxagoras had made the animating principle in matter. Thales' soul was in the magnet. Anaximenes' air was both the substance and the organizing principle. Heraclitus' logos governed the flux, but was also somehow identical with it. Anaxagoras says no. The organizing principle is separate from what it organizes. Nous is what set the mixture in motion. The soul implications follow directly. Anaxagoras writes that nous has power over all things that have soul, the greatest and the smallest of living things. Nous is the condition for ensoulment. The soul is the local presence of nous in a living body. And because nous is unmixed with matter, the soul participates in something that is genuinely not reducible to its material conditions. This is the first fully articulated argument in Western philosophy for what the Conscious Mythos Framework calls the distinction between conscious self and corporeal levels. The organizing intelligence is different from the same kind of thing as what it organizes. It is finer, purer, more powerful. It is not mixed in, it stands apart. Aristotle will later criticize Anaxagoras for not using nous consistently. Whenever Anaxagoras can explain something mechanically through the mixture and its properties, he does, and nous disappears from the explanation. He only reaches for nous when mechanical explanation fails. Aristotle finds this intellectually unsatisfying, like a playwright who introduces a god only when the plot cannot resolve itself in any other way. The criticism is fair as a consistent argument, but structurally, Anaxagoras was pointing at something real. The organizing principle does not behave like the material it organizes. It operates differently. Bringing it in when mechanical explanation fails is an accurate recognition of where one level of explanation reaches its limit and another becomes necessary. What Anaxagoras cannot account for is the relationship between nous as cosmic intelligence and nous as it operates in individual souls. If nous is unmixed and singular, how does it individuate? How does the one nous become the many instances of soul in living things? He asserts the relationship without explaining the mechanism. That gap is real and unresolved. Heraclitus and Anaxagoras are solving the same problem with opposite approaches, and both approaches reveal something the other misses. Heraclitus keeps everything in a dynamic relation. The logos is the pattern within the flux. The soul participates in the logos by being a certain kind of participant in the flux. This preserves the continuity between levels. The soul is the cosmos operating at a higher degree of organization. Anaxagoras insists on separation. Nous does not mix. The organizing principle is categorically different from what it organizes. This preserves the distinction between levels but loses the continuity. If nous is completely separate, the question of how it gets into individual souls without mixing with matter becomes genuinely mysterious. The resolution that neither of them achieves is the recognition that levels of organization can be genuinely distinct without being ontologically separate. The conscious self is not made of a different substance from the corporeal level. It operates by different principles, has different capacities, and cannot be explained by reducing it to its material conditions. Distinction without separation, organization without ontological rupture. Heraclitus was right that the levels are continuous. Anaxagoras was right that they are distinct. Both were partially correct. Neither had the architecture to hold both truths simultaneously. Mapped against the 5 level consciousness architecture of the Conscious Mythos Framework. Heraclitus and Anaxagoras are doing something the Milesians could not. They are locating the boundary between the corporeal and conscious self levels and arguing about its nature. Heraclitus places the soul at the conscious self level by describing its function, its participation in the logos, orientation towards the universal, the capacity to align with the governing pattern rather than remaining locked in private perception. His dry soul, wet soul distinction is a description of vertical position within the architecture. The dry soul is operating at the conscious self level. The wet soul has collapsed towards the corporeal. This is a structural description. Anaxagoras places nous above the conscious self level, closer to what the architecture identifies as the entity level. The unmixed, all-knowing, all-powerful organizing intelligence that sets the cosmos in motion is the principle that makes an individual soul possible. The soul participates in nous the way the conscious self level participates in the entity level, as a local instance of a more encompassing organizational intelligence. The gap Anaxagoras cannot close, how nous individuates into particular souls, is precisely the gap between the entity and conscious self levels in the five-level architecture. The entity level is not personal. It does not have the particularity of individual experience. The conscious self level does. The question of how universal intelligence becomes a particular experience is not a failure of Anaxagoras' thinking. It is the hardest structural problem in consciousness philosophy, ancient or modern. Heraclitus contributes the insight that the logos are common, the organizing principle is shared, and universal, not the private property of any individual soul. This maps to the entity's level's relationship with all conscious self instances. The pattern is one, the expressions are many. Every individual soul that participates in the logos is participating in the same logos. Together, they establish two things the Milesians could not. Soul has a direction, upward, towards the organizing principle, and the organizing principle operates at a level distinct from the material it organizes, even if the nature of that distinction remains unresolved. Heraclitus says the soul participates in a pattern that governs everything, the soul that aligns with that pattern. The dry soul, the logos participating soul, is operating at its highest capacity. The soul that collapses into its material condition loses that capacity. Anaxagoras says the organizing principle is not made of the same stuff as what it organizes. Nous stands apart. It is the condition for all ensouled life, the intelligence that set the cosmos in motion and continues to govern it in every living thing. Resolves the full picture, Heraclitus cannot distinguish between the logos as a cosmic pattern and the soul as an individual instance. Anaxagoras cannot explain how the unmixed intelligence individuates into particular souls.